Chapter 1. A church was founded and a nation. Transport yourself back into the mid-18th century. Pedestrians strolled and horses the roads of the town of Haverhill. The promise of opportunity and freedom drew the earliest settlers to the New World. And already now, a few generations had enjoyed the hard-earned blessings of their forefathers' sacrifice. The townspeople of Haverhill, part of the British colony, had little knowledge of the high-class workings of Boston and Philadelphia. More important was the coming harvest and the need to store up for the next cold New England winter. Talk of revolution was surely in the air, but it was drowned out by the feel of crackling fire, the smell of fresh bread, and the sound of crickets throughout a good night of rest. God would watch over the colonies, kiss your family, work your field, and serve your church. Sunday mornings were a time to clean up and put on dress clothes. Risking the Lord's displeasure by disregarding his Sabbath was not to be taken lightly. Most townspeople would head off to West Parish, a congregational church. However, some of the townspeople were growing restless with what they felt to be the impersonal and detached nature of the worship at the time. They secretly longed for a more living religious experience, something that gave expression to their deeply affectionate feelings for God. Much of this unrest was provoked by the traveling preacher, Reverend Hezekiah Smith. Discontent with the established congregationalism, he sought to start a new church in town, a Baptist church. Baptists were not unheard of in Haverhill, but they were not a common sight either. Most of them had found a home in Rhode Island under the direction of the admirable but controversial leader Roger Williams, a generation or so earlier. But Baptists in Massachusetts, and in Haverhill no less? The thought was too much for many in the town to bear. They refused the use of the parish meeting house for the public worship of this new denomination. This did not deter the persistent Smith, as indeed very little could. The Baptist Religious Society of Haverhill held its first meeting January 1st, 1765, at the house of James Duncan. Reverend Smith preached from Luke 13, verses 8 and 9, the parable of the fig tree. Quote, "And he answered him, Sir, let it alone this year also, until I dig around it and put on manure. Then, if it should bear fruit next year, well and good. But if not, you can cut it down." The church was started so as to see that, quote, "the doctrines of the Bible be faithfully preached and urged upon the minds and hearts to the people." This persistence paid off in time. The first meeting house was raised on June 5th and 6th, 1765, in the heart of the city, due to the generosity of their 52-person church family. The townspeople remained uneasy about these Baptists, with even some accounts of persecution against them, but they grew more and more comfortable with their presence as each year passed. This was, after all, a new land which cherished religious freedom. The new Baptist congregation continued to meet weekly for worship and prayer. The first baptisms took place down at the wide and gentle flow of the Merrimack River. The church grew quickly in size, and its influence could be felt well beyond Haverhill. Anticipation of revolution grew until the inevitable happened. In 1776, word spread that the American statesmen had gathered in Philadelphia to declare independence from Great Britain and King George III. The hearts of mothers grew uneasy, even as the minds of young men raced to the prospect of war bravado. It was not long before many citizens and their sons went off to join the American army. However, it fared too much for Smith to enjoy the safety and security of Haverhill while watching the colony's boys go off to war. He sought permission from the church to join the Revolutionary Army as a chaplain, which they allowed. As an acquaintance of General George Washington, he served for 5 years and then returned to continue to pastor in 1780. His successor, William Batchelder, would pick up the baton with a heart for Haverhill and a concern for the new work in global missions. FBC Haverhill would support the mission of the young Adoniram Judson as he worked tirelessly across the globe in Burma. Bradford, the village across the river, knew the appearance of that intelligent and ardent Andover student named Adoniram Judson, who tramped over the hills to court of Bradford Borough. The charming and gifted Anne Hazelton. In 1812, as man and wife, under appointment by the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, the Judsons sailed for the Orient. It was a daring, pioneer venture of the first American society with the vision of a world to be won for Christ. Presumably every Baptist knows of their change of mind aboard ship and their baptism by immersion shortly after their arrival in Calcutta. American Baptist missions were born, and Baptists on the Merrimack had a deeply personal interest. Batchelder's interest in the great young foreign missionary movement may be signalized by this fact, that when the Triennial Convention was formed in 1814, for the support of the new missions of the Baptists, Pastor Batchelder persuaded his people on one occasion to send in a gift of $113, not a small sum for those days, from a small town church. The church was now firmly established. It was here to stay in town through winters and warfare with ministry and missions, a Baptist congregation that became mother church to many other local churches in New England, with an influence in Haverhill and the surrounding towns, throughout the colonies, and around the world. Chapter 2, A Tale of Two Pastors. First we have Hezekiah Smith. It is doubtful First Baptist Church at Haverhill would have been so influential, so quickly, without the extraordinary personality and spiritual gifting of its founding and first pastor, Hezekiah Smith. Quote, in fact, by 1783, the church was the fifth largest Baptist church in New England, having 190 members. FBC Haverhill's influence was unparalleled in the area, especially for a comparatively small town. Quote, for example, the membership at Haverhill was 157 in 1778. The First Baptist Church of Boston was the next largest church in the association, having 144 members. No other church had more than 100 members. Well, this was a demonstration of the power of the gospel. God used the willing vessel Smith to spread the good news to the area. A Reformed Baptist with a passion for evangelism, Hezekiah had the unique gift of communicating the gospel to anyone and everywhere. He was equally at ease when speaking to an audience of rough backwoodsmen as he was when preaching it to the elite at Savannah or Charleston. In fact, he often used the same sermons. Smith preached the gospel not only to free white men, but, quote, in addition to his regular church engagements, the young pastor often preached to the slaves of his church members. This type of versatility was rare in a pastor and surely played into First Baptist founding DNA. Later, the church would find itself in support of the abolitionists. Smith was fearless in his witness. Without this confidence and courage, Smith would most likely have been run out of Congregationalist Haverhill. As his biographer put it, uninvited and unwelcome. The new Baptist preacher found a group of interested persons in Haverhill and molded them into the first permanent Baptist church of any significance in the area north of Boston. Smith was not afraid of controversy when the gospel was concerned. As in his own words, he often disturbed many of God's enemies and comforted many of God's people. May his tribe continue. Do not let Smith's passion for evangelism lead you to regard him as a theological lightweight. Smith was a very well-educated pastor, receiving a Bachelor of Arts degree from Princeton, the College of New Jersey at the time, in 1762, and in 1765 a Master of Arts in addition. He then was awarded an honorary Master of Arts from Yale College in 1772, another honorary Master of Arts degree from the College of Rhode Island in 1769, and finally the highest degree in 1797, a Doctor of Divinity. Dr. Smith's love for education was lifelong, playing a crucial role in the founding of the University of Rhode Island, now Brown University, and serving as the chairman of the school committee in his section of Haverhill. The first written school report in the history of the town was presented by Smith in 1798. First Baptist Church of Haverhill was well taught and well cared for under his leadership. Smith had a love for the Scriptures, preaching through nearly the entire Bible. Quote, obviously well versed in the Scriptures, Smith used texts from every book of the Bible except Philemon, with the Psalms, Isaiah, and the Gospel of John each being used on over 400 different occasions. Under his pastoral leadership, the church was active in seeking to guard against sin as, quote, the church discipline was a vital part of the church polity among the Haverhill Baptists. He remains one of the most underrated early Baptist pastors in America in terms of recognition for his remarkable influence. First Baptist should remain grateful to God for this wonderful servant. Augustus H. Strong. Though his name no longer carries with it the fame that it once did, Augustus H. Strong was an important Baptist figure in the 19th century. He's best known as the president and professor of biblical theology